Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to give everyone just a couple more minutes, or actually less than a minute, to join, and then we'll dive right in to our discussion with Emeritus. Hope everyone is having an awesome Thursday so far, and we will get to some introductions here just momentarily.
Go Raptors.
Had to get that in there.
Couldn't resist.
Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and kick it off. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're located. My name is Liz Treadwell. I am the head of user engagement here at HeroX. And today we are pleased and super excited to be speaking with the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Innovation at Ameritas, Josh Everett, and our own CEO, Christian Cudicini. We're going to be discussing a internal crowdsourcing challenge that the Emeritus team ran just recently. But before we get into the discussion, I just want to see Josh, Christian, how you doing today?
Great.
Awesome.
Good, good. Thank you both for joining. So I bet most of the attendees today weren't aware that crowdsourcing can actually help drive innovative thinking within their own organization. It can also allow you to recognize employees on a different level than you maybe normally have. Usually people recognize them for their innovative ideas and their outside of the box thinking. So today we're going to discuss how Emeritus turned to crowdsourcing to encourage their own employees to share ideas on how to help boost sales or find new opportunities for growth, as well as a chance to win a prize of $5,000. So this isn't your typical suggestion box in the lunchroom experience. We're going to go into some details on how that actually worked. So before we get kicked off, if there are any questions which show up for you, just simply pop them into the chat, and then we will select a few for our panelists to answer right at the end. If you have a question directed specifically at someone, just make sure you mention that in your question. So let's get started with some introductions. Josh, if you'd like to briefly introduce yourself, just kind of what you do at Emeritus, how long you've been there, things like that.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Super excited to be here with you guys. Really love the HeroX platform, and it gives me great pleasure to come on here and talk with you guys about this. So my name's Josh Everett. I do run our Strategic Partnerships and Innovation Lab here at Emeritus. Emeritus Life Insurance Corp is headquartered in Lincoln, Nebraska. We provide a number of financial services to the U.S. consumer base. What I'm specifically responsible for from a strategic partnership standpoint is finding new opportunities to put our product on additional shelves for distribution, provide our great financial products to that U.S. consumer base that needs us and we can provide significant value to. From an innovation standpoint, I'm focused on growth, all about growth. How do we gain new growth? How do we cultivate that new growth? How do we disrupt either the way that Emeritus provides offerings to our consumer base or the insurance industry as a whole? How can we help disrupt that focus area? So really a fun, exciting time, not only in insurance, but also financial services. And we have the awesome opportunity to leverage the HeroX platform to help us down our innovation path.
Wonderful. Perfect. Thanks, Josh. And then for those of you who aren't familiar with HeroX or haven't been on one of these webinars before, Christian, I'll have you introduce yourself next.
Thanks, Liz. And hello, everybody. So my name is Christian Cudicini. I'm the co-founder and CEO of HeroX, or as many team members call me, the reason we're all in this mess together. And a longtime entrepreneur. I love helping solve problems using technology. And for me, HeroX is an opportunity to help organizations, leverage the internet to become more agile, more innovative, more successful by leveraging the power of the crowd and just the unbelievable cognitive surplus that is out there that, no matter who you are, no matter how many rocket scientists you employ, um, the smartest people on the planet work for somebody else, or at least many of them do. And we're all, 2 clicks away from each other. So I think in the future, looking back, it'll just seem so obvious that, of course, companies that are up to something and are going to lean into problems and need innovation should leverage the power of the crowd in order to help do that. And obviously, every company that's got employees has a great already engaged crowd sitting right there with many great ideas that don't necessarily have the right way of sharing and collaboration occurring in the company's team organization and org chart. So HeroX can be a great way to create a democratized forum that really lets the best ideas trickle up to the top, no matter who they came from.
Completely agreed. All right, great. Thanks, guys. So let's dive into some questions here. Before we get into the actual Emeritus Innovation Challenge, Josh, first, kind of give us some background on how you got introduced to the HeroX platform initially.
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened originally is HeroX happened to scan the market and find Ameritas Life Insurance Corp. And so one of your sales guys reached out to our Chief Marketing Officer, Brent Cordy, here at Emeritus, and said, hey, we have this crowdsourcing innovation challenge. We hear that you're going down the innovation path, but maybe there's an opportunity for us to partner here. So originally that was brought to our Chief Marketing Officer. He came and tapped me and said, hey, Josh, I want you to come take a look at this opportunity. I want you to understand what the capability is, how we could leverage this, how can we bolster our culture of innovation at Emeritus, potentially using a platform like this. So after that we had an initial phone call, maybe 30, 45 minutes with Liz and her team and other folks on the HeroX platform. And we said, hey, this sounds interesting. What a great smart bunch of people. It looks like they have something here. Why don't you guys come in for a site visit? So we had you guys on site here at Emeritus to look at really what you offer, what the platform looks like, what are the opportunities, what have you done in the past, what other companies have leveraged you, how have they won, and really did a deep dive on your platform, your capabilities, your experience, where you've been, what you're looking forward to, and then how could we partner together. After you guys came in for that demo, then we sat back and took a look at the overall opportunity here and decided we think HeroX could be a great platform and partner for us to really help grow our innovation culture here at Emeritus.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, yes. And then building on that, what made you decide to actually run the challenge just with your employees? I think I recall hearing you had a couple concepts in mind, but what ultimately guided you to do it just with the Emeritus team?
Yeah, great question. So first and foremost, what I always like to do is a competitive landscape analysis. So I wanted to see not only what HeroX is about, your capabilities, features, functions, but I also wanted to review the full landscape of what other crowdsourcing opportunities are out there, what other platform systems, teams could help that. So I developed a full competitive landscape analysis, looked at around 15 different competitors to HeroX and looked at all the features, functions, and did a deep dive based on the requirements that I had gathered internally. Post that competitive analysis is pretty clear to us about who some of the mature players were in the space, some of the training, some of the help, some of the support. One of the things that we had that was a disadvantage is we've not done a crowdsource challenge before. We've done idea boxes and we've done, send your great ideas in and we'll go do something about it. But we've never had a formal program to really take that in, take those ideas in and then act upon them. After we performed our competitive analysis, ranked and scored everybody, HeroX came out on top, which is not a surprise to me, but the depth of all of the capabilities, features, functions that they brought to the table really made it an easier decision for us about who we should partner with right out of the gate to do this. One of our core components of this program was to learn. And who better to learn from than the experts behind the machine, right? And so Well, I wanted to find a partner that brought maturity, understanding, experience, and can help guide and teach me and the Emeritus organization while we perform this challenge to gain some innovative growth here. We were looking at a couple different options from a crowdsourcing opportunity. We looked at going internal. We looked about going external. We looked at building our own crowd and things such as that. Ultimately, we landed on, we think the right place to start is our internal associates. To Christian's earlier comment, some of the brightest people, all of the brightest people, work for somebody. I firmly believe that here at Emeritus. We firmly believe that at Emeritus, our largest asset is truly our associate base. They know the ins and outs. They know the day-to-day. They know the pains and the struggles, and they know the opportunities, which is really what we were after. And so it became a very easy decision for us to say, let's mine our internal associates first and give them an opportunity to do something great. And that really resonated with the insurance organization, or Emeritus Insurance Organization. One of the first steps in our innovation build out is to transform the culture, to really engage innovation into everyday conversation, into everyday talk, into everyday work. And in order to start adjusting or transforming the culture to be more innovative at Emeritus, we needed to start with our associate base, not only from the senior executives, but to the ground layer employee, to figure out how can we collectively, as an organization, drive this innovation culture. So it was a very easy answer for us to say, let's start with our biggest asset, our internal associates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely agreed. I think it's a really great place for people to start when they're not familiar with crowdsourcing yet. It's almost like dipping your toes into it easily. Fantastic. So pivoting over to Christian, how common do you feel it is that brands crowdsource internally with their own employees? Do you feel like that's a common thing, or is it kind of an uncommon thing that we're seeing?
Well, I think, so there's a couple ways to answer that, but, you know, I think nowadays companies are starting to, you know, realize that their team you know, is an underutilized asset in many ways that Josh described, you know, in terms of their accumulated insights and wisdom and their you know, feet on the ground perspectives that can often lead to some really interesting insights, and creating that non-hierarchical collaboration is a really great approach. The great thing about crowdsourcing is, you know, crowdsourcing, like anybody who understands how games work, right? You know, creating a great game, whether it's a you know, sports environment or something else, it's all about defining constraints and incentivizing you know, the key behaviors. And crowdsourcing lets organizations tackle, you know, a problem or an innovation need, but in a positive way. It gets the conversation going about how could we solve this problem? What are the solutions? It helps frame, you know, the problems, if you will, as challenges or obstacles that we can overcome. So it gets people talking in positive tones rather than, you know, what a lot of online collaboration turns into is, you know, people just, you know, complaining about like how things are wrong, and you know, and kind of feeling like stuck. Crowdsourcing gets people engaged, so it's a really great way to work with your team. And crowdsourcing, by the way, also there's also a great model of getting your employees to be able to collaborate with non-employees, with the open crowd, in ways that, you know, let you leverage both the expertise of your in-house team as well as the, you know, the creativity and innovation of the overall global crowd.
That's a great point. Okay, moving back over to the Emeritus challenge specifically, Josh, how did the employees and the rest of the team respond to the challenge and the opportunity to not only submit their ideas, but potentially win a prize for them?
Yeah, you know, it's amazing. The response was nothing short of amazing. I was totally blown away, shocked, surprised, and in awe about the engagement around the Emeritus community. Everybody from our CEO and president to various people on the floor came in, and the conversation just started to build and snowball. And I had more conversations during this period with people I've never even met or talked to in the Emeritus organization than ever before. So wow, did it get the conversation cranked up and started, and a buzz and an excitement through all of our organization. It even gives me goosebumps today thinking back about it, about how engaged the Emeritus community was. Part of it was I had our CEO do a video and talk to the Emeritus community about how important this opportunity was, and how important innovation is going to be to not only the insurance industry, but specifically Emeritus, and really help me tout the opportunity that every one of us had in front of us with this capability. So I was blown away, and I'm just amazed at the level of engagement, conversation from all levels of the organization around this opportunity. We had a good percentage of our folks engage and have conversations, submit ideas. Many submitted more than one. So the excitement and the engagement was just mind-blowing to me. Couldn't have expected anything more than I got. It was really great.
Yeah, I'm a witness to some of those multiple submissions. So yeah, that was great to see. Something else that I know you didn't mention, but I wanted to mention is that the Emeritus team was very prepared to promote this challenge internally. So you think you can just let your employees know and they're gonna just run to it, but they actually had a really great plan to, like Josh mentioned the CEO video, but also email reminders, putting it on screens around the office, things like that, because you do have to remind people that this thing is still going on, even if they are super excited about it. So I know you downplayed that a little bit, but you guys were super on top of making sure people were aware that this was actually going on.
Yeah, you're spot on there. The communication plan around an activity like this is core to get the result that you want. Me and my team put a lot of heavy effort into ensuring who are we going to engage, how are we going to engage them, what is the mode, method, and transportation of that communication, and how do you keep this alive, breathing, and advancing over the course of the period of the challenge that we ran. It's not a once and done. It's not a start and an end. It is an ongoing living thing that you have to maintain, manage, and build upon to really drive that engagement model. Communication was one of those things that I think we did really well. And as I polled kind of the people that were involved, I think they also said, the communication was great. It was in front of us. We clearly saw it had the support. You can see it in the words. You can see it in the video. You can see it in the, umpteen emails we did, in our newsletters. So I really spanned all of our communication modes and methods and leveraged them to make sure that this was at the front of the mind. So when you walked in the building in the morning, you'll see right up on the TV, hey, don't forget about the Emeritus Growth Challenge. And so it was constantly there. That was a key part of our execution plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and anyone who's watching this that is thinking about running a challenge, this definitely applies to what you would do as well. You might not need to have to create a video necessarily, but definitely just making sure you have some sort of communications plan in place is super crucial. So that's great. Okay, so let's move on to some of the results that you received, Josh. Were you surprised by the ideas that came in? Let's start with that, and then we'll kind of build off that.
Yeah, so absolutely. Again, I come back to we got some very, very bright people here. Amazing to me. Some of these ideas were like, wow, where did you come up with that amazing idea? And where have you been in my career at Emeritus, right? Completely blown away. One of the things that really caught my attention or what was surprising to me is how many innovators we do have. One of the core learnings I want to get out of this is to be able to pinpoint who are my innovators in the Emeritus culture. How do I find them, and how do I help them and them help me to build this innovation culture? The number of people that submitted multiple ideas was quite shocking to me. There was at least 3 different teams that submitted over 10 ideas each. And you can find those hot pockets of innovation conversation by leveraging this tool to understand who are those people, what are they bringing to the table, how do they think, and then ultimately, how do you bring them into that innovation culture to continue to build, expand, and grow that? So it truly was about the amount of engagement, and particularly the amount of engagement by specific people that gave you insight to who really are those innovators.
And then in terms of the ideas that you ended up receiving, were they kind of distributed across the company? Was it like certain departments like customer service that were primarily submitting these? What did you kind of notice in that trend?
You know, I was worried about that on the front end, right? Like, how am I going to get people, you know, from customer service that are on the phones all day engaged in this? They're busy all day. Everybody has full-time jobs. So how was I going to engage them, and how could I make that happen and make sure that we got a good spread? Frankly speaking, I think the communication and the plan and the excitement around it drove an awesome spread across the organization. We had ideas from every single business line and every single shared services area within Emeritus. There was not a area or business line not represented in the initial submission process. So very good coverage. Even as we worked it down the process, almost every single senior leader was represented in the submission list. So I was quite amazed by that. I thought there'd be pockets of innovation, right? Mm-hmm. Technology, creative design, you know, digital transformation. Some of those pockets I felt would probably be where the heat was, but it turned out differently, not completely differently. Those were hot pockets, but there were far more than that than I expected. So we had great spread across every business line, every shared services. Super pleased with how much we got from the various different areas and departments.
Great. No, that's wonderful to hear. Okay, we're going to pivot back over to Christian here briefly. So in the case of Emeritus and Josh's team, they came to us with some ideas. Can you describe how HeroX supports organizations like this who are interested in crowdsourcing, but maybe not quite sure what a good concept would be or how to move forward, especially those that are new to crowdsourcing? How does HeroX help with that?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. So there's a couple of things. So the first thing to understand is that the source of all innovation is there's only one source of all innovation. It's human beings, right? Yeah, I've checked. I've checked, and turns out behind every innovation, if you keep on looking, there's a human. So shocker, I know. So we don't get as much credit as we should in the media, right? It's almost like people talk about the technology as being innovative, right? And the humans are catching up, but that's not true. And everybody is a genius about something, right? Everybody has a unique talent, skill, perspective that they can contribute. So it's all about matching people's genius to the problems they were meant to solve. I mean, that's kind of the fundamental idea behind HeroX. Which is why we're called HeroX. We're really helping people be able to find their hero's journey, in the world of their career and their profession and their vocation. In terms of the staff sourcing approach, like what we did here, there's a couple of key concepts that are really important. One is psychological safety, right? It's a really hot topic right now, by the way, in kind of management circles, is the concept of psychological safety as an important step for letting creativity and innovation shine. If there's no psychological safety, people are not going to do risk-taking activities, and without risk-taking, there can be no innovation. Everybody's just playing it safe, right? And then also this idea of teaming, of being able to teaming as a kind of a verb has recently risen to distinction again in management circles, and it's just this idea of just-in-time collaboration and letting people connect based upon the pragmatism of collaboration rather than like the org chart says that, marketing person should be here, so they're here, right? And that kind of freestyle approach really, both of these things are key elements of how the HeroX platform works and how crowdsourcing works. So we bring those. And the other thing I'll add is that, also the social proof I guess you could just call it like just the building the habit of a crowdsourcing approach. When your employees are new to it, it needs to be reinforced. But our vision is that companies are going to start, getting their employees kind of comfortable with this approach, and it'll become standard operating procedure. And it'll almost like be a trigger, like somebody could be dealing with a customer problem, that's really tough, and they can get an insight like, oh, if we just did this over here, then we wouldn't have customers, get into this problem and call me, when they're struggling with this problem that's really about, a gap in our product or a gap in our offering or whatever. And so getting the trigger in their minds of like, oh, let me go and share this insight, and having a platform with the psychological safety and the teaming where they can post it from their perspective, but then a product engineer can step in and go, hey, actually, if we just did this instead, if we brought machine learning into that, that's actually how it would work. And so that collaboration, that's like, the way that we've learned it works. And our platform makes that super simple. And in fact, it made us introduce a subscription pricing for organizations that want to provide ongoing crowdsourcing, so that they can just get a perpetual or a subscription license to be able to use a platform in an ongoing basis, along the lines of what I just described. That was the quick answer.
Well, that was fun. I missed the end of that, but I will move into the next question. So that's great. Thanks, Christian. Josh, we talked about the promotional strategies and how that helped Emeritus, but what other tips for other organizations that might run a similar crowdsourcing challenge, what would you let them know to do when they're running something like this?
Yeah, I think I probably have a couple suggestions. Depending on how big the organization is and what your organization looks like and where you're at in the innovation culture type conversation, senior executive engagement is really key and critical to the overall conversation. Having their support and being openly and outwardly supportive of that conversation really is key to the overall conversation. The second thing I'd probably add is communication. As I mentioned earlier, the communication is key. It's required. That's how you drive engagement. That's a big piece of it. The last piece I would probably add is think through your overall plan. Really try to understand what are your goals out of this. So as I mentioned, one of my core goals out of the gate was learning. So really understand what it is that you're after. Think about that, articulate that, and let everybody know what your goals are, so that way collectively you can drive towards the same conversation. Understanding what those goals are will help formulate how you really go drive a program like this. So that's really what it comes down to in my mind.
And how easy was it to set up the challenge on the HeroX platform on a scale of, I don't know, 1 to 10?
Yeah, 1 to 10, 1 being not easy, 10 being amazingly easy.
Sure, we can go with that.
So, yeah, I would say, I'd never do I rate anything at the very top of the scale. That's just Josh. Yep. So I'm gonna, I would say a 9. super easy. The content and the capability that you guys brought to the table for us, the plans, the tasks, the activities, have you thought about how-to videos? I mean, the plethora of information and support that you guys provided made this simple. Never used the HeroX platform before. Never ran a crowdsource challenge before. Within a week, less than a week, and only a few hours a week, leveraging the platform, getting in, using it, leveraging it. So simple. So very simple.
Good. That's great to hear. That's what we strive to do. Okay, we're going to pivot over to Christian again. Christian, what are some of the other ways outside of, internal employee crowdsourcing that you're seeing organizations using the power of the crowd to support their innovation strategies?
Well, HeroX's vision is to be the world's problem-solving platform, or if you want to use fancy Silicon Valley buzzwords, and you would call it like, we want to be the Airbnb for human ingenuity, right? We believe that that we have more than enough innovators in the world to actually solve really any problem that we care about solving. And I don't know if you've noticed, but we got lots of problems in the world. So what's missing is a platform for collaboration. So our big mission here is to take the 7 billion people that are on the planet and give them an opportunity to help solve the problems that we have, and provide that missing platform that gets them there. Because it used to, just like in order to do science, you had to get a job and that has you wear a white lab coat, and work in a specific place. And that those barriers have been removed. The internet is good at removing these barriers and creating that inclusivity. Now, that being said, what we've, crowdsourcing is it's a very broad, concept, right? So how do you reduce, if you're a company, you got a specific problem, how do you reduce, crowdsourcing into the solution to my problem? Right? And so that's been a challenge for crowdsourcing for a while. And what's missing is a proven model, proven approach that people can grab off the shelf and be able to use for crowdsourcing. So we started developing crowdsourcing blueprints based upon our research that includes over 1,800 crowdsourcing projects. We've identified the best practices and the applications, and we're rolling those out as a set of crowdsourcing blueprints that address common use cases. So for example, we have one for startups around how they can use crowdsourcing. And startups have a common trend, common characteristic that they don't have a lot of money. So we let them offer equity participation to the crowd as an incentive, so they can effectively buy innovation, get the talent that they need by sharing in the rewards of equity, and that is an accelerant to the old approach of going to share the reward with investors, get the investors' dollars, and then spend the dollars to then find the people to hire. And we have a number of other blueprints. One, just looking at the chat, we have one for hackathons and events. Bring a crowdsourcing funnel and a digital experience, both to help power the hackathon, bring people into the hackathon ecosystem, as well as providing a crowd experience during the hackathon. And we have others along those lines, one for staff sourcing with what Emeritus does. So that's really how we're helping, is providing these proven blueprints that help organizations just be able to grab a crowdsourcing solution without having to figure it all out themselves.
And that's totally the case. As I came in from the Emeritus view, again, I'd not done that in the past. I'm going, guys, help me, help train me, help help me understand the process, the procedure. What do I got to think about? What are the concerns, the considerations, the risks? Help me, and they bring it. That blueprint is real. Anytime I went to Liz and said, hey, Liz, I'm thinking about, she goes, oh, I've seen that before. Here, go look at this document. Here's the link. Let me know if you have any questions. It's all there. It was super amazing about how much content and thought they put into this blueprint, and they bring it every day. And I'm not just saying that to say that. I did that to Liz weekly, easily weekly, probably multiple times a week. Hey, I got this idea. Liz, how could we do this? Boom, answer. Amazing.
Always happy to help. Okay, so kind of going to kind of more a general view of the Emeritus Innovation Challenge. So, you know, something like this would be, you know, this whole kind of crowdsourcing competition with your employees would be kind of like a great business tool to help with the growth of the employees to kind of discover new skills, maybe find new areas of the company that they're interested in, as well as drive satisfaction in the workplace. So why do you think, Josh, we'll start with you, why do you think most organizations are not implementing something like this currently into their strategy?
I think there's probably a couple of reasons. Number one, they don't understand how little this costs. I think people, when they think about crowdsourcing and you know, going to and gathering all these ideas, that must be expensive, and it's going to cost me a lot to go do that, which is not the case. I think a big thing is, and you know, this was one of my big concerns on my project, is after you run a challenge like this, you actually got to go do something with that. And that's what I think scares a lot of people, is that it's easy and simple to go get all these great ideas, but to actually go execute and implement them is a whole nother mountain to climb. And I think that's probably what scares people off, is how do you make something happen? Because if you run this great challenge, give great reward, and don't do anything with it, ultimately you failed. And I think that concern or that risk is really what puts a lot of people off, at least in my purview.
Yeah. And for people, obviously, that don't know the structure of your challenge, Emeritus requested very kind of short, couple sentence ideas. From there, they selected people to move on to a second phase where they had to build out their idea even more. And then the last phase, a short number of people had to build out their idea into a pitch deck. So the great thing about the Emeritus one is that even though they started with really high level ideas, it worked them through the process to actually build it out into something that's going to be a little more easy to implement, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. Christian, how about your perspective? Why do you think most organizations aren't doing something like this? Do you agree with Josh? Do you think there's something else out there that maybe is kind of scaring them away?
So first off, Josh, great insights, because you're like, from my perspective, you're nailing some of the key elements, and I really like the point that, yeah, it's like it's the old analogy of, like, you know, the dog catching the car, right? What do you do once you catch the car, right? So a lot of companies need innovation, and they're clear, and they need to adapt faster to the marketplace. You know, the way we describe it is, you know, the rate of market innovation is faster now than it was, you know, 20, 30 years ago. I mean, just look around, right? I mean, parents can't even keep up with, like, how kids are doing stuff like dating and hanging out with friends, you know, like, the world's changing so fast. If your company can't keep up with that rate of change, you're going to fall further and further behind. And just, you know, ask them, like, you know, Kodak or Blockbuster, you know, how that ends, right? And you know, foreknowledge of why you're falling behind and all that doesn't help, right? You actually got to take action. So the thing about crowdsourcing is it's a way to generate lots of ideas, lots of innovations, proof of concepts, creative designs, creative work product very quickly. But now you need to create the value chain of how that's going to impact customers. And so that's something that we work with companies to make sure that they're doing well. And we're also working with partners to do that as well. And, you know, it's a classic change management problem if you look at it from a consulting standpoint. But it's also just a kind of an innovation cycle. So we call this the co-innovation model, where you bring crowd and internal innovators together to make an innovation life cycle, if you will. That's what we've learned is really important. And another way to look at it is, like anything, crowdsourcing's kind of got a Goldilocks place for most companies, which is they need, it's great to get some innovation. Now they got to go do stuff. So there's a sweet spot in terms of how much open innovation they should be doing, and making sure that they're, making sure the traction happens, and then getting into that iterative approach is what, how we envision companies that want to accelerate innovation are going to behave in the future. And I'll add just one last quick thing, which is Silicon Valley, like the Silicon Valley startups, so many of them have crowdsourcing embedded somewhere in their business, right? And we don't see this crowdsourcing because it's often, like crowdsourcing is a buzzword. It's kind of like AI, right? Once it works, you don't have to call it AI anymore, right? Once crowdsourcing works, you don't have to call it crowdsourcing anymore. But Amazon, Jeff Bezos just released his latest shareholder letter, where he admitted that as an e-commerce store, they're getting their ass whooped by their partners. 60% of Amazon sales now are through their partners, their Amazon stores partners, which is really a crowdsourcing project. They're crowdsourcing e-commerce, so they don't have to be in the e-commerce business anymore. They're just in the connecting business. And 60% of all products sold on Amazon is through their e-commerce partners using a crowdsourcing model for their business. And so the more you look, the more you'll see a crowdsourcing strategy is powering a lot of the disruptive startups. What HeroX does is it enables public sector organizations, nonprofits and companies to access the same power that Silicon Valley's been using for a while, so that they can accelerate their innovation and be competitive.
Yeah, exactly. It's called all types of things, but it's basically just connecting people. Okay, so final question. We'll direct this to both of you. Josh, we'll have you start first. What role do you see crowdsourcing playing in leveraging an organization's internal talent?
Yeah, it's an amazing tool to gain a number of actionable and real ideas, something you can actually do something with. I think the opportunity here is you can find the innovators, you can find the people that want to engage in this conversation. Hey, look, out of the American the American population, 65 million people have a side hustle. 65 million people, that's a good population of the U.S. economy. So why not leverage that conversation towards the advantage of the community that you're already part of, right? And so they're going to, most associates are going to go run that side hustle anyway. If I give them an opportunity to do it here and help advance within the Emeritus organization, it's a win-win for everybody. And so I truly see crowdsourcing as an opportunity. I totally see it as an opportunity for not only the organization to capitalize on it, but an easy way for the associate base to engage in the conversation, feel valued, and see some of their great ideas driven forward.
Completely. Christian, what do you think?
Couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, what I'll say is it's it's our job at HeroX to bring all the know-how and expertise of crowdsourcing, and we're committed to any of our partners and our clients who are using crowdsourcing, that they're going to be using the best practices in the industry. They're going to be doing the best approach, using the best technology, and we're going to make sure that the process is successful for them. And that's that they don't have to worry about it. And what's even better is that we're really committed to educating and empowering everybody on how to do crowdsourcing. Just like social media marketing, didn't exist like 7-8 years ago. And it's that whole skill set of how to do social media marketing had to be learned. And now it's a job description, right? Now it's fully, indoctrinated in the industry. Crowdsourcing has to go through a similar, skills transition. And, we don't want to be the experts in crowdsourcing, and like offer access to that. We want to share our crowdsourcing expertise to anybody and everybody, so that we can help everybody learn how to use this tool successfully. And I think that's really exciting for us. And we're happy that Josh, thank you for everything you've shared. And it really, what you guys are the innovators in this by stepping in when you have. But we envision that this is going to become a really common approach for many companies as the awareness grows around crowdsourcing.
Yeah, just to go back on your point on, HeroX sharing knowledge, our platform is very open in terms of allowing people to come on and visit our knowledge base and check out all the, the things we've learned in the past, and just our best tips for running a crowdsourcing project, no matter, where you do it, if you do it on our platform or not. So we're all about sharing that information. Okay, so we have some time for questions. If you joined a little late, you'll see at the bottom of your Zoom webinar, there's a little Q&A box. If you have a question, please go ahead and put it in there. If you've put it in the chat, that's fine too. We got a list going here, so I'm just gonna select a couple to have our lovely panelists answer. So the first one is kind of more of a general question, not specific to anything we talked about here. But one of our attendees would like to know, from your perspective, either Christian or Josh, whoever wants to jump in first, what you feel the difference is between innovation and continuous improvements.
Yeah, so I can take that first, if that's all right. So innovation, what I see innovation is doing something different, doing something disruptive, doing something that hasn't been done before or not like this. From a continuous improvement, it's doing something that you've already doing, but make it better, right? Faster, quicker, cheaper, easier, simpler, higher quality. That's continuous improvement. Innovation is truly about innovative thinking, innovative processes, doing something different to get a either different result or significantly shifted result. That's kind of how I would box those two.
I agree. Christian, anything to add on that?
Yeah, so obviously at HeroX we think about innovation a lot, and innovation is a funny word in that everybody uses it, but few can actually tell you what it means or agree with each other on what it means. We break innovation into a nine like box grid, a 3x3 grid, and on without going into all the details. The three layers, three types of innovation. One of them is continual innovation, continual improvement, which is there, and then the third one is disruptive innovation, and the middle one, for those that there's additive innovation. Okay, and so these are the three innovation patterns that we've learned, and companies that are successful, like there's a common thing that people say companies can't innovate, like big companies can't innovate, but it's not true. Big companies that have a good culture and good performance, they're actually really good at innovating in continual improvement, right? And I'd argue that if you're a large organization and you're not committed to continual improvement, you've got bigger problems, right? So most of this, companies that are in business now are the winners of the past, right? They've outcompeted their competitors, et cetera. So continual innovation tends to be there. What's missing is the disruptive innovation, and that's really hard to do internal to organizations. So that's where crowdsourcing works, and the blending of those is really important. So So we use our methodology in order to understand how the ecosystem needs to work for the maximum impact of innovation and just overall for the organization. Crowdsourcing is a means to an end, and a great way, to tap an untapped resource, which is called the collective intelligence of the human species. And then we need to make sure that that tapped resource is then utilized powerfully by the organization. So that's my quick answer.
Yeah, needless to say, there's a lot of continuous improvement at HeroX. All right. So going back on something Josh mentioned earlier about using or people maybe not using crowdsourcing because they think it's going to cost a lot. Christian, how much does it cost to use the HeroX platform?
Yeah, good question. So we provide a wide range of options, but basically we have project pricing where it's a percentage of the dollar value of the crowdsourcing project. No different than the way Airbnb offers their service, where they take a percentage of the rental fees. So that project pricing is on a percentage basis, and therefore small and inexpensive crowdsourcing projects are small and inexpensive to use on HeroX. And then we also have a licensing option, a subscription licensing option, which effectively gives you all you can eat capability on the platform, and that's quite cost effective as well. And it especially if you then use the platform to launch multiple challenges, because now your challenges, the incremental cost is zero on the platform side. And we do offer consulting and advisory services as well. But our business is not to maximize those. Our business is to minimize those add-ons by keeping the platform as simple and easy to use and training people so that we can really achieve our vision of mainstream adoption of crowdsourcing, which won't happen if people need to hire an expert in order to do it.
Okay, and then Josh, we talked about you guys received a lot of great ideas. Can you give us, as detailed as you'd like, some next steps on how you're going to implement the ones that ended up winning?
Yeah, great question. So what we're going to do, and truly our process has already started. I'll meet with each of the innovators, so grand prize winner, and then I had 4 runner-ups. We're going to take all of those 5 ideas directly forward, and then we'll chase the other. There's a lot of great ideas there, so we'll come back to the other lists, but we're going to focus on the top 5 first. And initially, what we're going to do is we're going to I have a growth board that we leverage to ask questions, provide funding, provide resources. They have a number of questions about what if, how come, why not, what about, did you think about, what about this risk? And so I'm going to work with each of these innovation teams to answer those questions and then slice up and dice up their innovation idea into lean experiments that will allow us to prove out the assumptions or validate the risks or devalidate them. And then ultimately we'll take those lean experiments along with the roadmap to that growth board and say, here's how we think we want to attack this, in what order, in what phase, how much, and how do we go about this. They will then provide metered funding and resourcing to help us go execute not only on those lean experiments to learn and make sure that we have a winning idea, but then ultimately to scale and execute the overall end result from our innovation challenge. So I'll provide consulting to those teams and help them deliver that through our innovation framework.
And I think one of my favorite endings to this challenge was actually what happened with the prize money. Josh, can you tell everyone what the winning team is going to do with their prize money?
Yeah, so so we ended up awarding 5 teams. Of those 5 teams, it was great to see one of them gave to charity. So rather than putting the money in their pocketbook, they felt that it wasn't the value of the money that mattered to them. It was about being heard, being listened to, and having an opportunity to engage in this type of conversation. The money was a nice to have. They ended up giving their whole winnings to a couple of charities of their choice, which boy, how great. Not only do we got a great idea, they care so much to help Emeritus advance, they even care more, just like Emeritus does, to help support our community, where we live, where we work, where we play. I couldn't be more proud.
Yeah, I love that. And that's actually no surprise to us. You know, we had done some surveys to people who participate in these types of crowdsourcing initiatives, and the biggest driver for people to participate in these is actually the kind of intrinsic motivation to either, you know, have some sort of impact, whether it be like a social impact or just positive impact, and then also collaborating with others, working on stuff that they, you know, want to learn more about. The actual money or the prize is actually fairly low on the motivation totem pole, if you will. So that was really great to see that it extends true over into the internal crowdsourcing realm as well.
Right.
And then lastly, Josh, is Emeritus considering running another challenge with HeroX, or kind of what's the next step after you guys have kind of settled down from this first one?
Yeah, great question, Liz. We are. So I'm going to get these 5 moving, these 5 winning ideas and some of the direct follow-ups. I'm already having conversations. Obviously, the enterprise heard the conversation. All the associates are excited, and now I'm getting ideas coming out of the woodwork about we should run one like this and this and this and this. And so actively right now, I'm actively engaged in 3 other conversations that are likely to drive up our next either internal and maybe even a potentially external crowdsourcing challenge. So there's multiple departments and multiple executives talking to me about, can we do it? Can we run one? Can you help us get there? So yeah, it's real. The people saw it. They loved it. The executives liked what they saw out of it. The senior executives saw what they liked what they saw out of it. And I think it's only a short matter of time before we run our next one.
Wow. Love that. So for those of you on the HeroX platform, maybe you'll see the Emeritus one for you guys to participate in the future. That's wonderful to hear. Okay, so that will wrap up our Q&A session. First of all, of course, Josh, I want to thank you. We really appreciate you taking time. I know you're a busy guy to participate and answer all your insights, or answer all the questions and provide insights and your experience using HeroX. So thank you. And Christian, obviously you're busy as well. So thanks for joining today and coming on board to provide your input as well. So we're going to close out the webinar. If you'd like to learn more about how you can utilize the power of the crowd to grow better leverage and grow your internal talent, or maybe run a open innovation call to anyone to participate, you can reach out to our team directly. We have a contact us form right on the website, and I'm sure it'll be included in our follow-up email after the webinar as well. And then if we didn't get to your question today, we will answer it in that follow-up message. So on behalf of Josh, Christian, and myself, thanks so much for taking the time to join today, and have a wonderful Thursday and rest of your week. Take care, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. Thank you,
Thanks, everybody.